Alright, so today we are going to be building these. This is 4 boards, all in one. When I order them from JLC, I'm allowed 10 centimeters square, and these boards are 5 centimeters square. So I get 2 by 2 on the same board, so I get four times as many boards after I break them apart. Once they're broken apart, they look like this. Now, this board is a solution, yet again, to another little arcade problem we had. At the arcade that I work at, we have 16 SkeeBall lanes. Everyone knows what SkeeBall is. The problem is that SkeeBall, not everyone knows this, SkeeBall is a company and a game. And the company, I don't know, they went out of business, I guess, and they sold the SkeeBall game, the name SkeeBall for the game, to a company called Baytech. And the first thing Baytech did when they got the SkeeBall designs appears to have been to completely redesign everything from scratch. In fairness, it needed it. One of ours caught fire, so they definitely did need a re-engineering. They're now using a completely different board, completely different wiring. Almost everything in there is different. Well, we went and we have the old ones, and like I said, we had a couple minor fires. Not like flames and the fire department showing up, but we had charcoal wires and smoke. And we decided that it was time to update the guts of the game. So, we managed to get, and this is not something that'll happen regularly, so if you work for an arcade, don't try to do this yourself. I think we were kind of a guinea pig, and I think it worked out well enough for us, but I don't think you're going to see the company doing it. We managed to get them to send us the new logic boards and the new ball release mechanisms, and then we adapted them to work in our old games. And there were a number of adaptations we had to make. One of them, I've mentioned in another video, one of them was we had to build, you can ignore that corner thing, had to build 2 boards to adapt the sensors, the score sensors. So this board, this 3 boards here, this one is not SkeeBall related. More sharing designs because of the board size. But this bottom board takes the optical interrupter sensors from where the balls go through the holes and adapts them into a form that the new board wants. And the new board connects there. And this one does the same thing for the sensors in where the balls roll down, because it needs to know how many balls are sitting there and how many have been dispensed. So these were another one of our adaptations. In any case, we got them all adapted and we got them all working, and they were working pretty good. But the problem we had is at the time we were using coins, and every once in a while you'd look at one and it would be telling you to swipe the card to continue. Instead of insert coins, it would tell you to swipe card to play. And that, of course, drew our attention to the fact that it was mysteriously, randomly losing its settings. The idea was that it was happening during the day, but upon recent introspection, I guess, and recent experience with another one of my designs that had a similar problem, I think it was losing the settings at power off/on. In any case, I decided to solve that problem by designing this board. And what this board does, in the front of the SkeeBall game, there's a door you flip down, and there's a board in there with a little red LED on it, which is good because it means there's power to that board. And there's also 3 in ours, but there's supposed to be 2 buttons that you press in different combinations to cycle through the menu settings and to change the options on the game. And we were having to do this periodically as the games somehow forgot their settings. That got annoying when we have 16 of them and you never knew which ones were going to be wrong. And you have to go through all those menu options and make sure you get them all right, and screw that. So, I built this board that goes in place of that front panel board, and it pushes the buttons for you to set the menu options. And it's pretty simple. It just holds down the menu button for a predefined amount of time, which is how long it takes to get into the menu, and then it pushes the buttons to go through the menu options and the other button to change the settings. And it just pushes the buttons a pre-programmed number of times. Now, the obvious problem with that is that if the game has not forgotten its settings, then you don't, and you just push the buttons the right number of times, you're going to change the settings to something else. So, the first thing this does, well, technically the first thing this does when the power is applied is it waits a certain amount of time. And I'll try to stick a video in here of it operating. And so it waits a certain amount of time, and that's for the game to boot. And then once the game has booted, we'll hold down the menu button to get in the menu, and then we'll cycle through the options to get to factory reset and press it. Now we're waiting for the game to reboot after the reset, with an extra blink in there. Then after the game has booted, we'll get in the menu again. Now we'll go through all of the menu options and change them to what they should be. And as you can see, it does this a lot quicker than you could do it with your fingers. So, if we install one of these in each game, then in the morning when we boot up the arcade by flipping on all of the circuit breakers, every single one of the games will automatically reprogram itself, whether it had forgotten its settings or not. It'll factory reset, and then it'll set all the settings correctly. So, problem amazingly well solved, I think. Horn tooting there. So, as I mentioned, when I order these from JLC, I get 4 on a board. And I think that's going to be helpful, because in my last batch of videos, I spent probably 6 hours putting boards together. It was the most boring sequence of videos ever. But, as you can see, I've already done some of these. Where I'm doing 16 total, I'm obviously not going to do 16 of them on camera here, because that would just be retarded. Especially in the format that I did before. So, I did one board, one batch of 4, and those are already done. And then I've done another batch of 4 that I have not broken apart yet, and I'm not going to right now. So, next, I've got 2 more batches of 4, and I've got all of the parts, because the other thing is, and the other thing in those videos, is, I mean, that was 20 minutes. There's a 20-minute segment of me folding resistor legs, and who the heck wants to watch that? So, all of the resistors and other components are already formed. They're just sitting in these boards. I mean, they're just sitting in there. So all of my resistor leads are already shaped. A lot of things are already cut. Basically, I tried to be as ready as possible so that we don't have to have a 20-minute video of me preparing components to go into a board. I'm also expecting this to all be one video. I am not expecting this to be a batch of videos like the last one. So, I do have a strange kind of OCD. I'm going to number these boards. And I'm going to try to put them together somewhat adhering to the numerical order. I will definitely screw up now and then, but that's okay. It's not okay, but I deal with it. That's C1, C2, so this is board C, or batch C. C3, that's a horrible 3. C4, and then D1, D2, D3, and D4. Alright, so those are all done. Oh yeah, and you know what? I ought to mark the programming connectors too, because I didn't mark pin 1 on these, and as it happens, they're not in the same order as normal. Most of my boards, there's a trend that the pin 1 is away from the microcontroller, but however it happened on these, that's not the case. So, I'm just going to put a little dot next to pin 1. I'm already breaking my order. Putting a little dot next to where pin 1 goes on each of those programming connectors. And this is where the ISP device plugs in to put the firmware onto microcontroller. This board is based on the ATtiny85. These are... I've got the bootloader set, or the fuses set on these already, because I had a video where I was setting fuses. The fuses are set on these already. If you really want to know how to do that, watch one of the IO Dragoon videos. There's one... I think it's actually mentions it in the title, setting fuses on ATtiny84, which is a different chip, but it's the same process. So I got the fuses set on those, and we are going to now start assembling boards. as always, I have part values written on the boards, and also I do have it in my head, the resistor color code. Not as good as some people, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's like 3 in the afternoon, and I'm yawning. What's wrong with me? I'm going to cheat a little bit in that I'm going to look at the board I already made and just note the patterns of colors on the resistors, just because then I don't have to work out numbers in my head and patterns and things like that. So, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and start with the upper left resistor, and all of the ones are the same values, and the color code I've got on those is red, red, black, black, brown. So which ones of these are those? Red, red, black, black, brown. Oh, okay. So this is all the ones for one board. And one thing I'm not really prepared with sometimes is I don't really have convenient ways to set things down sometimes. I got a Pop-Tart box. Alright, we're going to use the Pop-Tart box. Are we? Is this going to work? Or is this going to be a disaster? Alright, I'll use the Pop-Tart box to roll those. So red, red, black, black, brown. And those go... Yeah, this is going to be a lot quicker, I think, than that other thing was. Red, red, black, black, brown. Red, red, black, black, brown. It goes, I believe, in all the ones marked that, the same. For some strange reason... Yeah, let's just go with it and see where we wind up. Let's just go with this and see where we wind up. And I've destroyed my order already. I don't care. I don't care. I'll get over it. It'll hurt me a little, but I'll get over it. I don't have literal diagnosed OCD. I won't really lose my mind over it. Just like patterns and consistency. Okay. So... bend those leads over just a little bit, just enough to hold them into the boards. Just doing this, not folding them over, not folding them hard down against the board. I don't really like that when people do that. I know it's a common thing, and there's nothing technically wrong with it. I just don't like it. And then we've got brown, black, black, brown, brown. And that, I guess, is my other set of resistors up here. Oh yeah, these are all, okay. These are all the brown, black, black, brown, brown. Alright. You thought Pop-Tart boxes were only useful to hold your Pop-Tarts. No, you probably didn't think that. Alright, so let's finish the red, red, black, black, browns while I'm here. These are 220 ohms. My board says 470. And there was nothing wrong with the value of 470. It just happens that 220 will also work. And I happened to have 220 ohm resistors without having to go to HR and buy them. So, 220 it is. It's an unfortunate day, in my opinion. It's kind of, in addition to whatever Governor Mills just did to us, it's not the greatest weather. It is, I mean, 64 degrees. I should be thrilled with this weather. But we've had almost 80s for the last couple of days, and I've been really enjoying the heat. I really like the warm weather. So, for it to suddenly be back under 70 again is... I won't complain. It's a good thing for some people. I like it hot, that's all. Okay. So, there's all of those resistors in. See how quick that was compared to, compared to the video where I spent 20 minutes folding them. So, now we'll do all those brown, black, they're 1K. We'll do all the 1K resistors now. And I'll flip this board around so they're in my standard direction. I always like to have the tolerance band. So I hold the boards, whichever way the resistor's going, I'm holding the board so that the... Well, that's curious. Notice one of my resistors is a different value than I expected, but apparently I put a 1K there, so whatever. It obviously works. I always hold, when I'm holding the board so that you can read the silkscreen text in the standard normal direction left to right, I like to have the tolerance band be the last band. Just looks better for me to have them all the same. I mean, they could be all the same the other direction too, and it would still look fine, but my personal, I'm going to do these in the right order. My personal convention is to have the tolerance band be last. And, I mean, honestly, as long as they're all the same, it looks fine. Just, if you're going to make something all the same, you have to decide what it's all going to be the same of. And for me, that is with the tolerance band last. And I've put them all in my little holder over here, which is actually one of the SkeeBall sensor boards, because it has a ton of resistors in it. I put them all in this thing in that direction, which just makes this that much easier. Except that the Pop-Tart box is determined to piss me off. That's what inanimate objects do, folks. They develop evil plans to torment us. It's a conspiracy by the Pop-Tart boxes, not the manufacturer. The box itself is sentient and is just determined to mess with me today. So we're going to fix that real quick as soon as I get those resistor leads folded over. I'm going to take these, do this so they kind of stay together-ish, set them back up here where they're safe-ish, and then we're going to take these little things, these little defiant pieces of crap, and we're going to exterminate them. Guess I didn't really work out how to undo that. There we go. Hey, look at that! The parts sit there and don't slide off the edge anymore. Alright. Now, back to the 1K resistors for the other board. Now, I can even hold this in my hand, might even help. Might make this a little easier. What the did I do there? See, I made a mistake. I put one of these in the wrong holes. Oops. One of the 220s I had in a hole where a 1K went. Again, if you get these boards somewhere and decide to assemble them yourself, the values, the part values on the board were selected, and they were selected and tested, and they do work, and it is the correct values. I am knowingly using some incorrect value. Well, the 1K ones are correct anyway. But I'm using 220s in place of the 470s because I've also tested that, and that also works. And I happened to have 220 ohm resistors. So if you see the board, you see the 470 written on there, and you see me shoving 220 ohm resistors in those slots, that's why. It's because I've already got them, and I didn't feel like making a trip to HR. Okay, so that's the main body of 1K resistors, and you'll notice there's still some 1K resistors left, and they actually go in a different spot in the boards. Those were actually the ones that I was surprised by when I was looking through this. They go... Oh yeah, so I had replaced... Basically what happened is I didn't have any 470 ohm resistors on hand, and I didn't feel like buying any. So, those 470s that it called there, I had determined that the 220s would work. These 470s power an LED, and I wasn't 100% confident that 220 was an acceptable value. It is, but I didn't feel like doing it. So, those ones I replaced with 1Ks. So, these other slots that currently say 470, they also get a 1K resistor. And again, the 470 ohm value was tested and does work and is acceptable and correct. So the number that's on the board is real. However, I just didn't happen to have any. So we're going with 1K on these. Yep, I must have COVID. I'm gonna die. Probably not gonna die even if I get that stupid thing. The world is really disappointing me these days. But it is what it is, right? Sit here and deal with it. $1K. Really? There we go. Didn't want to go in the hole. $2K. Another $1K. And another $1K. And another $1K. Fold those over a little bit down behind. Alright, and for last step, I've got some 4K7, some 4.7K resistors. I saw it written that way once, 4K7, and I just thought it was a cool way to write it. So, I do that now. The multiplier character, which is, the letter, goes in place of the decimal point, so like a 1.2 meg something would be 1M2. I even write capacitor values that way, so we get 0 micro 1 for 0.1 microfarad capacitors. I think they do that by default in some other country, maybe. I don't really know where it came from. But in any case, I've got some 4K7 resistors now that go into the spot, or I've got some 4.7K resistors that go into the spot on the board labeled 4K7. There's only one of those per board. These are pull-up resistors for the reset line. I've seen some pretty complicated power on reset circuits. There's even a chip dedicated to the purpose. And then I've seen some absolutely, I've just seen designs that do nothing with the reset pin and just hope that it's going to do what it's supposed to. And I'm sure the data sheet shows whether or not it will do what it's supposed to. But what has worked for me so far is I have a pull-up resistor to remove reset by holding the reset line up at 5 volts. The reset line is active low on these. And then I've just got a capacitor to ground. So when you turn the power on, initially, it is grounded through that capacitor, thus making sure that the chip is actually resetted. Resetted, is that a word? And then the resistor ends up pulling the reset line up. And I'm sure that slope there is probably not good on some chip or another, but my experience with these microcontrollers is every single one of them has worked perfectly with that circuit so far. So as long as I'm still working with these Atmel chips, that is probably the circuit I will continue to use. I didn't invent it, I did see that somewhere. Someone else did do it, and it seemed to work. And it looked like a pretty simple and effective solution to me. Again, considering the possibility that slope might be an issue on some chips. But on chips where it's not an issue, it's probably the simplest reset circuit I can think of that actually is a reset circuit instead of just counting on luck. I don't count on luck because I don't have any. Okay. So that's all of those resistors. That's all of the resistors. My little repository of resistors is empty, and this board can go back into the stack of things I'm not ready to populate yet. Alright. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to solder one side of each resistor. Can't tell you how often I have the urge to like scratch my face with the tip of the iron or something. I'm obviously, that would not be smart, but it's just an urge I have sometimes, and I've got an itch on my face, and I've got this pointy thing in my hand, and some little part of my brain is like, why not just use the pointy thing to itch the face? And then another part of my brain is just like, it's hot, you fool, and I don't do it. But still, can't say the thought doesn't cross my mind. I'm going to try to come up with some interesting designs that aren't arcade related. I feel like there might be some people out there that would be interested in some electronics assembly, but they aren't interested in the arcade industry. So, certainly, I will say I'm kind of open to suggestions, but please understand that I'm not I don't have any, like, major training. I'm not some incredible engineer. I've never done DSP stuff yet. I mean, I am interested in playing with it a little bit, but I haven't gotten there yet. And, pretty much analog audio and basic microcontroller stuff are really where my skills are at this point. I'm not ready to cut those yet. If you're looking for anything that, I'm not going to build a new GPU. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to build a Bitcoin miner. I mean, is that even still a thing? So yeah, if it's something you'd like me to tackle, consider designing and building, certainly let me know, and if it's in my skill set, I'll let you know, and we can talk about what kind of things you have in mind. And if someone comes up with an idea, I'm not gonna build everything just because somebody said to. I mean, if it's not gonna work out and be useful, useful is the wrong word. Instead of at least be fun or entertaining. If it doesn't pique my interest, if I'm not interested in it, I'm just not gonna do it. Unless you're paying me. I mean, I could be paid to design something I don't like. But, just for kicks, for the videos, to have something to post on here, if you come up with a design that I like, I'll go ahead with it, and depending on what it needs for components, I can't promise the component thing, but if I get boards made, if I get boards made and am planning on selling something, then whoever gave me the idea will certainly get one sent to them free of charge. At least the board, possibly the components too. It depends, again, on, what's on it for components. If I pay $1 million for the things, then I'm not sending them to you free. But, $30 worth of parts, whatever. So yeah, you want to get a board made, you gotta get something you would like to have me design that's within my skill set. We're talking, basic logic, basic microcontrollers, and analog audio stuff. Got something you want designed, you want built, you don't know how to do it, or just don't have time. I am certainly open to things to make videos out of. So, shoot me an idea, and if it's something I can handle, we'll make it happen. Something I can handle and am interested in. I mean, I gotta enjoy doing this. Again, unless you're paying me. But for free, I gotta enjoy doing it. Remember that whatever I design, I'm gonna wind up with one of. So, it ought to be something I want too. I'm thinking about doing a really fancy spectrum analyzer. I haven't seen really one that, I saw one in a video in a movie, actually, years ago. I think it was the beginning of one of the Ferris Bueller ones. And I really liked the way that analyzer worked. And I guess I should go find that movie and get a good look and find out what model that thing was. But I haven't seen anyone build one like it. I actually haven't even seen very many commercial ones that are similar. I did have one built into an equalizer that was pretty close. Pretty close, not perfect, but pretty close. And I should just go back and find out the model number and see if I can buy one on eBay. But I know how it works, or I know how to build one, and that's probably in my near future as soon as I get to the point where I can do some of this stuff just recreationally. I mean, these are for work. These boards are for work, although I do happen to enjoy building these. It's not the building that I like, it's the solving problems at work that I like. I like walking into work, looking at my boss and saying, "Hey, I fixed it," and he says, "What do you mean?" And, "Hey, look, I built a board." "Oh, another one?" I think that's the response I'm getting now. "Another one? I built a board." "Really, Mike? Did you build another one? Why? What did you fix this time?" But the question, "What did you fix this time?" is a million times better than "What did you break this time?" I think most people would agree with me on that one. I know there's some people out there who just like destruction. They probably are disappointed that I keep fixing things. Favorite memory that just popped into my head was I have a friend who was literally an arsonist. He was in prison for like 12 years. How the fuck long was he in prison? I don't know. I think he got a 12-year sentence, and some of it got suspended, but either way, he was gone for a long time for literally burning houses down. His name in my IRC channel is Arsonist. His name practically everywhere is Arsonist. And my flashback now was we were at a mutual friend's house who decided to look for... She was looking for something under the bed. And, brain surgeon moment, she decided to... She couldn't find a flashlight, so she decided to look under the bed with a lighter. And of course, caught that fuzzy stuff hanging off the bottom of the box spring that really, really thin and quite flammable. Of course, she set that on fire. She set her bed on fire. Long story short. And myself and a literal arsonist had to put out a fire. That just popped into my head as, I have people in my life that like destruction, and I spend most of my time undestructing things. I'm being literally constructive when I have so many people around my life that prefer to be destructive. Nothing wrong with that. I like some destruction and demolition too, sometimes. I like blowing stuff up when it's not important stuff. I just like to be a little controlled about it, a little civilized. Civilized is the wrong word, I mean. One of my favorite explosions, or favorite moments so far, was we put like 5 or 10 pounds of gunpowder in a microwave oven, set it off in the middle of the woods. An old microwave oven. There was this big, ginormous, heavy transformer in it that landed in the woods like 50 feet behind us. It was kind of fun. I do like a big boom now and then. I just happen to know how to build things sometimes, and that's more fun. More socially acceptable fun. There was a place out in the woods in my hometown. Not really badly out in the woods. I mean, you could get there with a car. It was technically it's actually on the map as a road. If you go there, you'll question that. It's getting better, but you would have questioned it then. It's basically it was basically a four-wheeler trail. It's still part of the ATV access route, and it still is a four-wheeler trail. But it is legally on the map as a road. Anyway, there was this cutout spot there, this dugout area, where literally kids used to go there with firearms, like shotguns, basically, and rifles, and, gun things. And they would go there, and they would just target practice out in the middle of the woods, not that far from town, literal just teenagers with guns. And that was perfectly normal. People just did that. And now, I hate this world. I really hate what the world has turned into. Alright, going to be a brief pause while I check and make sure that I'm not reaching that 30-minute limit on my camera. And then we'll do some diodes. I also moved the camera. Oh, we reached 30 minutes. Darn it. Well, that sucks. So there was a 10-minute there was a pause about 10 minutes ago, and I don't know what I was doing at that time, but I hope it didn't mess with it too much. But alright, so now we got 20 minutes that we can do diodes. Or 20 minutes before the next pause. So the next thing I'm going to do is the diode. There's one diode per board, and I've mentioned those diodes before. They're always in my designs, because these things get, especially the ones that are going in an arcade, the arcade industry, their electrical safety habits, from the sense of being safe for the customers, yeah, fine. But employees in arcades, technicians tend to take some liberties, and it is not uncommon for them to plug and unplug things while they're on, and even installing these things sometimes, because the board that was originally in there had an 8-pin plug on it, and this is a 4-pin plug, so some of the pins are going to have to be rearranged, and that's of course going to be a manual process, and someone's going to get a wire backwards sometimes. It just happens. So these diodes are the power supply. The power input to these boards has a series diode, and its purpose is to protect the board. Probably just I don't know how much of the board would be damaged. Definitely the filter capacitor, and probably the regulator, and who knows what else. Possibly the microcontroller too would be damaged if someone managed to plug it in backwards. So these diodes just prevent that from happening. If you plug it in backwards, nothing happens, because you can't get through the diode. Very simple, textbook, basic application of a diode. Doesn't do anything fancy. May also notice I'm a little bit more mobile today. I'm no longer tethered to my desk. Had a slight furniture change. Decided to just bring my computer chair over here. Seems to be a little more sane. So, as I've mentioned in a couple of videos, whenever possible, I like to cut the leads off before I solder. That is not possible sometimes, because sometimes you need the leads on there to hold the component into the board. However, in this case I don't, because the board can sit down on a flat surface, and diode is currently going to be the tallest component in the board, so gravity alone is going to hold those components into the board while I solder them. I forgot where the diodes are. I forgot where the diodes are. Alright, I see them. Alright. I just think it comes out more professional looking if I have the pins cut before I solder them. I know that's not even how the factories do. Well, is it? I don't know that. How do factories handle through-hole components? There's videos online of the SMD process. I'm sure there's videos of through-hole ones too. But, everything is SMD nowadays, so the stuff you find readily about PCB assembly is all talking about surface mount stuff. I'm I'm sure the videos exist for the whole stuff. It's just never come up in my recommended videos. I don't spend a whole lot of time searching YouTube. I kind of just watch what it shoves in my face. Alright. Diodes on that board are done. I'm being careful to keep these boards together, but yeah, I think one fell out. Nope, the diodes actually stay in just fine. They have enough of a grip that even if I don't have any pressure on them, they still stay in place. I can't remember how I formed the leads on these ones. However it was, I hope I could do it again because I liked how these worked out. Diodes are done. What's next? What component is just higher than the diodes? Technically, the microcontrollers themselves. Do I want to do this in that order? Kind of like, why not? You know, what do I have to lose, right? The microcontrollers. You know what? This is the easiest time to put those in, actually. So let's go ahead with that. So these are the AT Tiny 85. Specs are available online. Made by Admel. Cost, pretty cheap. There's a notch, a little notch in the drawing. There's a dot on the chip. The notch is on an end, the dot is toward a corner. Who cares? Corners are technically on an end. The end of the chip with the dot goes in the end of the drawing with the notch. There are some chips that have a notch instead of a dot. Either way, one of the pins on that chip is going to be labeled, and it's going to be marked in some way, and the marked pin is pin number 1, which will always go in the end that's marked on the drawing. So again, if for some reason I've released these boards, which I don't know if I'm going to, because I feel like these are kind of a niche situation. I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of people out there with crossbreed SkeeBall games that need memory help. But if for some reason I have released these boards and you are using this video as an assembly guide, remember that the marked pin goes on the marked end of the drawing. And that is the case with every professional thing that's out there. I have seen someone, that person will go unnamed only because I can't remember who it was, but I have seen someone use a symbol completely backwards. Oh no, it was a commercial product I bought that I'm sure it was a mistake. They had made a mistake in assembly, and there was a socket. And the IC sockets also have a notch in one end to let you know which end is which. And they had used the marked end for the not the pin 1 end. And it was marked correctly on the board, but the socket was wrong. So if you tried to go by that socket, you were going to be sorely disappointed when you turned the power on. Alright, so okay. Another thing I like to do is I start with pin 1. I solder pin 1 first. That's another one of those OCD things. Again, I don't have diagnosed OCD. I won't really lose my mind if I don't get to solder pin 1 first. It's just a personal habit. Okay. Another thing I like to do is kind of stagger my soldering a little bit. The rating on most of these things is 10 seconds for soldering time. Most of the data sheets will show the maximum temperature to be used for soldering up to 10 seconds. I just like to not keep focus heat on one chip for a long period of time. So, or even on one side of a chip. That's why I'll do this kind of back and forth thing. There we go. I soldered one in the wrong order. I'm not losing my mind over it. I do wish it hadn't happened. It bothers me a little bit, but, you know. What do you do? I had a little bit of an accident last night. Not a major one, but it almost was bad. When I removed my other chair was clamped to the desk. Meant for little kids and works for me anyway. But in order to make it stay on the desk properly and make it clamp properly, I had added a 2x4 back there, which was not secured in any way. And when I removed it, I forgot about the 2x4. So the chair and the 2x4 were kind of holding each other in place. And I forgot about the 2x4. So when I removed the chair, the 2x4 came crashing down and snagged the cord to my soldering iron, which went flying. And then I had a hot live soldering iron on the floor, laying on its own cord. You know, get it picked up quick enough. Didn't do any damage to anything, but it was a moment that concerned me a little. I mentioned a few times how much I don't like being burned. Kind of surprised it didn't land the iron on my toe, just given my luck. But it didn't. So I'm lucky in that sense. Sorry, I can only solder 8-pin chips just so fast. Just be glad these aren't the 40-pin chips. Oh my god, there is a 40-pin Atmel microcontroller with like a lot of memory, and it's available in DIP form, and the Arduino IDE can program it. I got the add-on already. I think it's like a ATmega 1284 or something. And I haven't decided what I'm going to use it for, but I'm definitely going to get some of those. They're like $20 for the chip, though, so I'm not going to use it in anything high volume. But I think it's cool that it exists, and I'm going to put it to use somewhere. Maybe you can send me suggestions on what I might do with a chip like that. If you look up the specs online, I think it's a 1284. 1284. It's a 40-pin chip. It's part of the ATmega series. And it has a lot of memory. Both SRAM and flash. And I just can't wait. I want to use it for something. Another thing I'm looking to do is I want to be able to generate VGA signals. And I only need 640 by 480, but that's still a 25 megahertz pixel clock, and I can't bullshit that with a 16 megahertz chip. I don't think I can bullshit that with a 32 megahertz chip. So, if anyone has any experience generating VGA signals with preferably an Atmel chip of some kind, I would be interested in learning about that. Alright, microcontrollers are in. Now what? I need another cue sound. Okay, so next component to install. We've got the resistors, we've got the diodes, we've got the microcontrollers. The next thing in order of height seems to be the 0.1 microfarad capacitors which go into the slots labeled 0, micro, 1. I would like to talk about that micro symbol for a minute, because I am sick and tired of people talking about how many UF their capacitor is. We do tend to write that thing as a U, because it looks kind of like a U, but it's a mu. Not the sound that some cats make, or the obvious cartoon reference there. Am I missing some capacitors? Did I not count out enough? It is a mu symbol. It's Greek or something, I guess. And it's an M with the sides squashed in. It's not a U. It's a squashed in M. I think I might not have pulled enough capacitors out. We'll see. Ignore that. It's just a toothbrush. Yeah, I did not pull enough capacitors out. I'm missing... Oh, nope, there they are. They're hiding. They were hiding on me. Alright, there we go. We got all the capacitors. We're good. Start shoving them in there. I don't really have a convention. Well, I do have a convention on this, actually. So again, I'm holding the board so that the writing goes left to right, and I'm holding the capacitor so that the writing is facing me. So if I'm looking at the board like this, and I turn it like this, I see the capacitor writing. And again, as I mentioned with the resistors, it's really about them all being the same. You could put them all the other direction, and I would still technically be happy with it. I just wouldn't do it that way. If you have to decide on, again, if you have to decide on something being all the same, you have to decide what that same is going to be. And for me, with these capacitors, it is with the writing facing me when the writing on the board is left to right. Some of the writing on the board is at 90 degrees, so there's two left to rights. But as I mentioned in another video, the way Eagle handles text, all of the 90-degree text is still going to be the same as each other. So there's really only two text directions. There's horizontal and vertical, but there's no like backwards vertical. And there probably is. It's probably possible to do it, but by default it just seems to not happen. I wonder if these things will stay in place if I just... You know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take that chance. I'm going to fold the leads just enough, just a teensy bit, to keep them into the boards. Or into the board. There's only one board right now. Well, there is another one. I'm not there yet. Still working on this one right now. There's one board ready to have its capacitors soldered. I've heard different ways of saying solder. I'm sure mine is wrong too. I'm sure mine is the wrong way, but solder, how I say it. Don't care how you pronounce it, just make it work. Why did I do that? Anyone know? I sure don't. Alright. There's two capacitors per board. One is the decoupling capacitor for the power pins. The other is the aforementioned reset timer pin capacitor. It's of debatable value. I think the Atmel chips are the ones that can actually work just fine without a power on reset at all. Like they do it internally, maybe. But I guess for the sake of completeness, I don't know. I just feel like I like to have that RC circuit on there, at least, at the very least. And if I were doing something that was really critical, I'd probably put a comparator after it just to clean it up a little. Just to clean it up a little, but this isn't that critical. This is an automatic button pusher board for an arcade. and if for some reason it doesn't reset properly, they can just hit the circuit breaker off and then back on, and it'll have another chance to work. And if a board routinely doesn't work correctly, then we'll address it. But an occasional misfire now and then, number one, I don't even think is likely. I don't think it's actually going to happen. And number two, if it did, wouldn't be a big deal at all. That's an occasional one. Again, if it's happening regularly, we'll assess why and take care of it. But I tend to think this is going to work just fine. It's weird, as long as I've lived in Maine, I've never actually noticed the sound of birds outside. And I think that's because this is one of the first places I've lived where there's actually a tree right outside my window. And during this whole lockdown thing where my hours have been so messed up, I've been going to bed pretty much in the morning. I've been going to bed in the morning when the birds are out there making their maximum noise, so I've been falling asleep to tweeting birds for the last couple of months. That all comes to an end tomorrow. My primary full-time job is reopening tomorrow. And I don't know how I feel about that. I've been kind of enjoying this, but I enjoy working also. I didn't like this when it started. I didn't like the lockdown when it started because I was very used to going to work every day. It was just my natural life at that point. And now I've got the same problem going back. It's just a change. It's not that I like either one more or less. I mean, I've still been working, so it hasn't been like I've just been idle all the time. But I have had more time. Had a little more time to myself, and that's been enjoyable. So, I mean, either way, it is what it is. I'm going back to work tomorrow. Tomorrow in the morning, which is great. Sarcastically great, because my body is not ready to start getting up early in the morning yet, but it is going to have to. Teaching a class tomorrow at Cell 2016. Where are the classes? Bottom-ish row. Okay. Oh, these are all ground. All the wires I'm soldering right now are grounds. I will say I am very pleased with the quality of these boards from JLC. I'm getting advertisements now from 2 US companies. One is Advanced Circuits, I think, and I forget what the name of the other one was. I am getting advertisements from 2 US-based companies that claim to make circuit boards. On my next batch, I think I'm going to give one of them a shot. I haven't decided which one. Probably whichever one is less of a pain in the neck to order from. We'll see how that goes. The one I looked at before, I was unable to get a quote for my board, which is already a major red flag. As far as the simplicity or difficulty of interacting with them goes. But I found reviews and people talking about it, and it looked like they had a price of like $30 a board, and that won't fly. But I am going to give them a chance to give me a quote that's not $30 a board. If they give me a quote of $30 a board, I'm not buying any boards from them, possibly ever. JLC charges me $5 for 10 boards. They charge me 50 cents a board. 60 times that is not acceptable. I am expecting the price to be a little bit higher because everything in the US is a little bit higher than China. But I will not pay 60 times more. So we'll see how that goes. See what their quote is. The other one, I forgot the name of. I don't remember which one is which either, but I forgot the name of the other company. But I will give them both a shot and see how it goes. Probably on the next board. I can't necessarily say that because the next board, if it's something that's time critical and I just need it done, and I don't have time to mess around with it, then I'm going right to JLC because I have experience with them. But if it turns out to be, if the next board is something I'm doing just for the hell of it, we'll try another company, see how it goes. Alright, so the capacitors are into the board. So looking at another one for reference, what's the next higher component is actually the electrolytic capacitors, no, it's the transistors. So TO92 devices, transistors, and regulators. Coming right up, right after I make sure that I haven't exceeded my 30-minute, the next 30-minute video file, and I'm probably just going to start another video file just to be safe. I have exceeded the file I have exceeded the file size limit on my phone twice now out of not paying attention. So we're not going to do that again. It is 4:28 now. I'm going to 4:45. At 4:45, provided I notice, that's a problem. I gotta remember that at 4:45 we need to start a new video file. Alright, so TO92 devices. These should be regulators. Yep, those are regulators and these are transistors. The regulator obviously powers the circuit. The transistors are the outputs that drive the button lines in the SkeeBall game. And I've got a habit with a lot of my designs. I've been using optocouplers for the outputs, just because the isolation it's a nice safety thing, I guess, to be sure that it's isolated. I don't know how better to say it. The isolation is a nice safety thing. And I do that with the other designs because I don't really know for sure what game somebody is going to put something in. These ones I know what they're going in. They're going in SkeeBall. They've already been tested. The isolation is not necessary. Everything's working at the same potential and off the same power supply. So there's absolutely no need to isolate these. So I'm not using optocouplers. I'm just using transistors to drive the lines directly. I see a lot of companies do that anyway. Withhold my comments on that, but I don't see a lot of optocouplers used in the arcade industry. Which almost scares me, honestly. Am I going to try to do the regulators and the transistors all in one fell swoop? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get them all in there, hopefully. Try to brace that board against them so they don't move around. Do I have a trash? Where's my trash box? I don't know what I did with that. It's probably across the room and I don't want to go get it. What did I do with the other strip? Wow. Alright, whatever. That's just going to go off camera for a minute. Seriously, there should be a strip that I just... Oh, it's over here. Actually, I can use the Pop-Tart box for trash. That'll work. I have a bigger box that I've been using for trash. And I set it aside earlier. My room is dynamic. I move things around all the time, and I don't know what I did with that box that's got my trash in it, so. Shit happens, then you flush, I guess. Except I can't find the toilet, right? Okay. So I'm going to do something a little different than normal. Basically, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to, you know, those regulators sit lower. The regulators sit lower, and that is a problem-ish. Alright, let's just do the regulators first, and then add the transistors after. I'm going to do just the middle terminal of these. That's the plan, anyway. I'm going to do just the middle terminals of these, and then I will just go back and make sure that the regulators are straight. Although they should be, if I can just press these down a little bit so that they sit flat, so that their flat tops sit against the top of the sit against the desk. Well, we'll see how it goes. I have not tried this method before. This is new to me, and you know what? You know, it sucks to keep doing this differently, but I am going to do those transistors. Because I think what'll happen is if I put the transistors flush against the board, I think that the regulators, they'll kind of levitate a little bit, but they'll sit. It'll make them sit at the same height as the transistors. Maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. I'm going to give it a shot because why not? I am not being paid hourly, unfortunately, so I can't say I'm benefiting from doing it this way. But it's not like I have anything else to do right now. That's a lie, actually. I've got another project, another repair project for someone else that needs doing for tomorrow. But, on the other hand, it's something I can't actually fix, so really all I need to do is... Really what I've committed to do is to take a shot at it, and I've already looked inside it, and it's potted. It's entirely potted. I can't get to any part of it, and actually repairing it is pretty much nil. Pretty much not going to happen. So if it actually needs repair, it's not going to happen. But what I am going to do is just set it up and see if it's see if the problem is user error. That's a light. It's a light. I mean, how can you make a mistake with a light? How can that be user error? His power is different. He's got a lot of lights and potential power problems. And on top of that, he's in an extremely hot environment. And my initial conclusion, or my initial suggestion to him when he explained what the light was doing, I said, is it overheating? Because it sounds like it's overheating. And he said he didn't think that was it. So I think it still might be. It might be environmental. So really I'm going to set that light up here. And just leave it on for a while and see if it cuts out. And if it doesn't, then it's environmental. Not that that's really going to solve his problem, but I can't solve his problem. If the ballast is actually misbehaving, it's an electronic ballast, and if it's actually misbehaving, I can't fix it. It's entirely potted. And it is so integral to the fixture itself that it's not worth trying to replace the ballast without just replacing the entire fixture. These did not automatically set straight, but that's okay. They came out pretty close. Actually, you know what? I think that's how I'm gonna do these from now on. At least when I'm doing a lot of boards at a time, you know, groups of 4 like this. Cut off the excess weeds of those, and I will do the regulators and see how they sit, see how that leveling idea of mine works out. Might turn out to be a complete disaster, might work great. Who knows? You never know. You just make shit up. No, seriously, I mean, as far as what I'm capable of doing, I do electrical, I do plumbing, I do bits of carpentry. I've been asked before. It's been in a long time because I've reached adulthood now. But when I was a teenager, I would get asked questions like, "How did you learn to do all this?" And my answer is, I didn't. I don't know how to do anything. I can bullshit my way through anything. I don't know how to do any of this, but I can bullshit my way through anything, which is how I've lived my life. I don't know how to do something, I start doing it, and I'll probably figure it out halfway through. Or I'll figure out how to do it after I've already done it. That's happened a few times. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that if whatever you're doing, as you do it, you are aware of the fact that, number one, you're aware that you might be doing something unconventional or wrong. And number two, every decision that you make needs to be an informed decision and safety oriented. And if you don't know, if you can't make, if you're unsure of something, you need to ask someone. I cannot begin to tell you how important it has been as I've learned these things to know someone in my life that not only knows the material but is willing to talk to me and tell me and explain things to me. Not just tell me how to do it, but explain why. And that's going to be really hard. That's already really hard to find now, and it's probably going to get worse. You know, you can't usually call an electrician and ask them, hey, how do I, what's the right thing to do here? The answer you're going to get from most of them now is stop what you're doing and call a professional, which is bullshit. How do you learn things? How do we keep getting professionals if the professionals aren't learning things? Well, we've commercialized education as well, so you can't learn anything on your own now. I mean, you can learn it, but the government will never recognize that you have learned it. So I think that's bullshit. I understand the official reason why it is that way, because people that were really unqualified were doing things that they weren't able to do, or they weren't really qualified to do. That's a societal failure. And the solution to that is better education, not more government. I understand that we are using more government as a easier solution, I guess. I guess you can argue that it's easier than teaching people, but what it really is the educational system wanted to be monetized. Wants to make money. For whatever reason, and maybe it should make money. I'm not expressing an opinion on whether that's good or bad, but the educational system wants money, and people that learn from each other or from experience aren't participating in that money thing. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make participation in the educational system mandatory. I am not a licensed electrician because I don't have time or money to do the mandatory schooling. I think there's still a way to achieve it with mostly apprenticeship, I guess. I think you still are required some classroom time, though. Oh, that came out pretty decent. So now I'll do the other board. Really need to get my eyes checked. I don't know why. I guess, take that back. I got no need to check my eyes. What are they going to do? Tell me they're fucked? I already know that. Pardon my language. I already know my eyes are bad. I really don't need a goon to tell me that. It's another thing with this medical system. There's some things the medical system can't fix. If you have a cold, they can't cure it. We don't have a cure for the common cold. It go cliche on you. We don't have one. So don't go to the doctor because you have a cold. If you can't breathe and you're dying, go to the doctor. They can probably do something. Put you on a respirator, keep you in the hospital. But if you don't need to be hospitalized, don't waste your time or the doctor's time going for a cold. If you have a cold, stay home, get over it. What are you achieving by going to a doctor? A professional tells you that you have a cold? Do you feel better because a professional spent a part of their... Do you feel better because a professional spent part of his or her day to tell you what you already knew? Yes, there are some people out there who can't figure out if they have a cold. Or who might mistake something else for it. If you have a history of being an idiot, then don't count on your own knowledge. Seriously, you gotta be pretty inattentive to get through this world and not know and not have some idea or some adequate assessment of what your own intelligence level is. It's really not that difficult. If you are wrong all of the time, you should probably not count on being right. If you have a long history of being wrong, don't count on your intelligence. You don't have any. And that's harsh. I didn't really mean it that way, but at the same time, I kind of mean it that way. If you are always wrong, don't count on being right. But if you got a really good history, honestly, of accurately assessing your own condition, and you think you have a cold, you have a cold. You have a cold. Stay home. Stay home. It'll go away. That's what colds do. This actually is not about that. That comment is not about COVID. Although it kind of applies there too. Most cases can recover at home. If you can't breathe, go to the hospital. I think that rule, that set of rules kind of applies to all of it. It applied before COVID existed. It applies now. Think you have a cold? You might have a cold. You might have COVID. Who knows? Think you have something? You probably have something. If you can't breathe, go to a hospital. Otherwise, stay home. It'll go away. Last time I went to the hospital was a kidney stone. And I dealt with it as long as I could. I've had more than one kidney stone in my life. I'm not addicted to painkillers. I don't have any right now. I actually haven't used any since my last bout of pain. But I do very much enjoy how well they work when I need them. So I went to the hospital figuring, because I had had kidney stones before. They gave me Vicodin, I think it was. And I just went to the hospital, the emergency room, because I figured they'd give me the same thing and the same problem. The pain would go away. And then the third time I had the kidney stone, I actually was not even going to go to the hospital at all. I thought I underestimated how effective the painkillers actually were. Because my memory of the first two kidney stones was it didn't hurt that bad. Well, it turns out it didn't hurt that bad because my body was full of Vicodin. So the third time I remembered it didn't really hurt that bad. I can probably suffer through it. And I tried to suffer through it. I just dealt with it. And I thought I was just going to deal with it, ignore it. It was just going to go away, because that's what they do while they come out. But, you know. All three of mine I've been unaware of when they came out. But I thought I was going to suffer through it, and it got bad enough that I actually thought maybe it wasn't a kidney stone. We considered the appendicitis theory, and upon realizing that that would probably kill me, I decided that we'd actually go see a doctor. So that time I went to the ER, not specifically because I wanted the pain medication for the kidney stone, but because at this point I was thinking it wasn't a kidney stone and might actually be something that's going to kill me. So I went to the ER, and the doctor thought it might be a kidney stone. They sent me for, they thought it might be appendicitis, and they did some tests, and he came back and he said, because I told him when I got there, like, I think it could be a kidney stone, but it seems kind of similar to appendicitis, so I thought we should see what's going on. And they did their tests and came back and said, yeah, you have a kidney stone. And I said, cool, what can we do about that? And they said, we're going to give you Vicodin. And I said, okay, I figured that. Okay. So the benefits of my lifestyle. I do have a criminal record. Anyone who doesn't know that doesn't know me very well. Most of it's expired, doesn't come up in background checks anymore. I haven't been a bad person in like 10 years. At least. More than that now. Holy shit. It was 10 years when I started at the... It was a few years when I started at the call centers. But I do not have a drug use history. There's nothing in any file about me about drug addictions or drug habits or drug crimes. So when I walk into a place and I'm in pain, there's nothing in my file that discourages them from just saying, here, have Vicodin, or whatever the painkiller of the week is. And I don't abuse them. They're designed for pain management, and I use them as prescribed, and they work really good. So the benefit of not having a drug addiction is that when you actually need the drugs, number one, not only do they work better because you haven't got this resistance to them, or tolerance, but the ones that require a prescription are also easier to get because they don't just assume you're walking in there trying to feed your addiction. To be long story short. These videos, the idea of this happening. No one knows this because it only happens when I'm alone. I'm pretty much always talking to myself. I have full conversations with myself sometimes, which is probably a sign that I'm not all there. But really, I mean, I'm just taking a video of me talking to myself is what this is. Alright, so I got the transistors and regulators in. How are we doing on time? The time is... Seriously? Wake up! My computer's gone to sleep on me. Time is... Time to start a new video file. Alright, we can do this. Well, apologize for the last 23 minutes of video. The sound is going to be, might be different than the rest. I'm doing an experiment. I've got a separate phone down here that's recording the sound so it's closer, because I think that'll sound a lot clearer. But for some reason it wasn't recording for that last segment, so I got 23 minutes of nothing on that one. Whatever. Alright, so... What's the next tallest component is the electrolytic capacitor. It's one per circuit. I've already mentioned in other videos the polarity is extremely important on these. So when I make boards, my boards have a little plus next to the positive side of the capacitor. I've seen designs where the minus side is labeled. In this case, it's the positive, and it's just a plus. The capacitors, traditionally, electrolytic capacitors have a band down one side, and it is almost always the minus side. However, I have seen capacitors where the positive side was labeled. So if you are one of those who just automatically assumes that the band is negative, you're going to be right 90% of the time. But just know in your heart of hearts that capacitors that are labeled the other way do exist for no purpose other than to torture you. Someday you're going to get one and you're going to put it in a board without paying attention, assuming that that band is negative, and when you turn the power on, that thing is going to go to the moon. Always do not just assume that the band is negative. Look at the band and make sure that the symbol in it is actually a minus. Because the other ones, they're definitely rare. I've probably encountered one twice in my life, and they were both in really old things. But they do exist. So pay attention. It's also relevant if you're replacing a capacitor in something that's very old and the circuit isn't labeled but the capacitor is. Also make sure that the one that you took out, the one that you're taking out, that the label is what you actually think it is. That's gonna need some cleaning. What even happened there? This weird vapory looking stuff, like it got sprayed with something. The solder spit out on the board or something. And I'm just looking and making sure that I got them all the same direction. I do... Like, after I solder the capacitors on these, you can't see the labeling anymore, so I can't really look to see if I got them in the right direction. I'm just worried about missing one. So I look at least if they're all in the same direction, I assume that I did not get them all wrong. And that is a personal assumption that could very well prove me wrong at some point, but... You know. Having a spare piece of circuit board lying around, of any kind, is always good. You'll use it a lot more than you think. Just to clean up your desk, if nothing else. But I also been using the holes in that has been what I've been using to form component leads. It works pretty good. They can hold components for you. Word 2 goes before 3. Or D2 goes before D3. I almost said that one backwards. So also with capacitors, the longer lead is typically positive. I don't ever count on lead length things because in the process of a product getting to me, heaven knows how many hands it's gone through. And if it's been packaged differently or repackaged, or if the leads have been cut. And that is especially true if I happen to be using a component that has been harvested from some other device, because some of my projects that are not critical and are not for someone else, that I'm just building for myself for the heck of it, I will actually go pull parts out of some other device that I don't need or don't care about or it doesn't work, and use them in my circuit. And in those cases, obviously in all of those cases, those leads have already been cut to length by the factory that originally used them. So if I try to count on the lead, there's no lead length difference to count on most of the time. They're all the same. Either way, I just don't think that that's the best method to remember to determine polarity of components. The best way with capacitors by far is when they're labeled when the factory has literally written a minus on the capacitor. You know which side that is. Alright. We're good. We've made a lot of progress. It's been an hour and a half already, but we've made a lot of progress. Next component in order of height. I just did the electrolytic capacitor. The next ones, not by far, but the next ones are the LEDs. So this board has 3 LEDs each, and these red ones aren't used by the current firmware. My little blink test firmware uses them to confirm that they're working. The firmware, I thought it was a power light. I designed these so long ago that I've forgotten details of them. It's not a power indicator. The firmware controls it. And the firmware that I have already written as of the time of recording this does not actually address these red LEDs. However, I will be modifying the firmware to use them for something, so I'm definitely going to put them in the board. They're shared with just like the IO Dragoon board, they're shared with the I2C line, so they can't really be used to reliably. They can't indicate anything while firmware or while programming communication is happening, but the current firmware doesn't use the I2C function either. So, who knows? The firmware, as you can tell, you might be able to tell from what I'm saying, I'm not 100% done with the firmware on these, and there's still a lot of variables, and still a big question mark as to exactly how that will be handled. So there's 1 red LED, and there are 4 blue LEDs. One red LED and 2 blue LEDs. The blue LEDs indicate when a button is being pressed. And these blue LEDs, I really wish I could get these on camera better, because you can see the internal elements of the LED. And there's one leg, and it's the one toward the right of your screen right now, and I really hope the camera has focused on this, although it probably hasn't. It probably needs something behind it to focus on, maybe. Anyway, the rightmost lead in your video, in your picture right now, is the negative side, and there's a couple of ways to tell that. One is that the lead is shorter, which, again, I think is a stupid thing to rely on. The other traditional method that is reliable for the most part is that one side of the LED, the base of the LED, right where it sits down against the board, is round, but one side is flattened. It's a flat side, and that is the negative side. The method I continue to use, despite it having been proven unreliable under certain circumstances, is that the negative side, again, I really hope that it focuses on this and you can see it. The right side, I've since learned it's called the anvil. That horizontal piece that the LED chip is actually sitting on, that in almost every single case is the negative side. And that's just about as reliable as the band on a capacitor being negative. It always is, except when it's not, which is rare. The difference is when you get a capacitor backwards, it blows up, and when you get an LED backwards, it just doesn't light up. So it's not as much of a catastrophe if I get one of these wrong. I'm not going to get one of these wrong, because as long as you're sticking with the same brand of LEDs, they're all the same. But just for the record, at the arcade that I work at, the boss bought a batch of LEDs that were backwards. For however it happened, the anvil on those is positive. And I used some of them, is how I learned this. I used some of them, and then was like, why are they not lighting up? And I thought the LEDs were bad. And I just took a resistor and a power supply just to try to light one up, but of course it didn't light up. And I thought, okay, well, obviously these LEDs are junk, but the boss uses them, and they work for him. And then I realized that negative and positive were backwards from my method. The anvil was positive. So what I just did is I've cut the negative side of each LED. I've cut the negative lead short, pretty much to the length that's actually going to be in the board. And then I've gone around and I have put just a tiny tack of solder on all of the negative terminals. So now I put the LED in there and hold it against the solder that's blocking the hole. Heat it up just enough while pressing it down, and that puts that LED very firmly down against the board. Which is where I want them. I want them solidly against the board. And it means I don't have to glue the LEDs in. The only other way I know of to make sure they sit down against the board and sit hard against the board would have been to glue them. I mean, obviously there are other ways to solder it down against the board, but I mean, other than soldering it this tightly to the board, the only other way I know to keep them down there would be to glue them, and I don't like gluing components. Some glue, as it ages, becomes conductive and starts interfering with your circuit, and that's just bull. That's just BS. That is male cow poop. And then there's other types of glue, your various super glues, that if for some reason anybody ever needed to replace the component, it's an LED. Probably no one's going to have to replace the LED. But if anyone ever did need to work on the board and the components are super glued to the board, I mean, come on. That's just evilness. I don't know about right to repair. I'm going to stay out of the political debate about whether or not you have a right to repair. Personally, I feel you do, but I'm still going to not really make any arguments for or against that view. Just tell you that I do have that view, but I'm not going to make any arguments for or against it. But I certainly, as a person making boards that other people are going to use, I want them to be repairable. And part of that is scale, I guess. I mean, I'm not Apple. I'm not this huge conglomerate company that makes money by selling more boards, or that has to support them in any way. I mean, I do support them, but I don't. It's not supporting these is not a huge chunk of my time. And there may, the dynamics of business, when you have 1 million people messing with your product instead of 3 or 4. I guess where I'm going with this, or what I'm trying to say, or I guess what I'm thinking about, is how many people are repairing your boards and might mess them up. I might have maybe one person a month tries to repair one of these and screws something up. And what's their recourse there? Well, they can call me. They can call me and say, hey, I did this thing that I thought was going to make this work, and it didn't, and now it does this. And that's one person a month that I can say, yeah, I'll call you back after lunch and see what we can do. And I can actually call them back. And we can discuss what they did and why they did it, and I can tell them never to do that again. as long as they live, or I will break their fingers. We can establish what the problem is, and I can probably even tell them how to fix it themselves. Or I can say, well, that's a hilarious mistake. Send it back here. I'll straighten that out for you. No problem. They're also cheap boards. It's not a huge investment. So maybe that's the difference. If I were making millions of these things, I wouldn't be able to support people if they messed them up. But, and I guess I guess I'm kind of the opinion that if you mess with something knowing that support isn't really available, and you break it, it's on you. That's on you. You don't, I mean, yeah, you own it. You have the right to break it. But if you break it knowingly, if you do something knowing that you might break it, and turns out, yep, you broke it, I mean, does anyone really owe it to you to fix it for you? No. Or even to support you or help you fix it? No. Not at all. You made the decision to do that knowing that it may make a problem. It may lead to a problem. Sure enough, it led to a problem, but you did that knowingly. That's your own problem. That's your problem. You can fix it. You can buy another one, whatever. I, being a small-scale entity, will try to support people. Just because I like making people happy. Although the other side of that is if you're a dick to me on the phone, I can guarantee you will get nothing. You call me up yelling and screaming, I ain't helping you. Sorry. But for the most part, I enjoy making people happy. So, someone calls me up and says they broke the board. I'm not going to promise anything. But most of the time, if you're decent to me, I'll put some effort into helping you out. Again, these are cheap boards. I mean, may have you just send it to me and I'll just replace it if I happen to have any on hand. But don't count on that, because if I don't have any in stock or on hand, I'm not sending you one. I'm not gonna order a batch from China just because some guy broke one. But if you're having trouble with one of my boards and I've got 30 of them sitting here and I can't walk you through fixing it, I'll probably just tell you to send me the old one, and then I'll send you one and I'll fix it here. If you haven't brutalized it too bad. We're almost done. Got 2 more sets of components to do after the LEDs. So there are spots on the board for buttons. Again, the firmware isn't done, so I haven't decided exactly how the buttons are going to behave. And I'm not putting them in the boards at this time. Partially because I don't have enough buttons. I don't have enough buttons to populate all of these. I need this thing, for this project, I need 32 of those buttons, and I've got like 4. So, populating all of those spots is not possible. If I decide that they are necessary, or that they would be really beneficial to have all of them populated, then I will go to HR and I'll get more buttons. But the other side of that, or the other thought that I'm having, is, so initially right now you're going to program these with one of my little programmer things. You're going to use the programmer to set the options, and it'll obey those options when it boots. The other options I've considered was having the buttons actually relayed to the game, so that as you push the buttons, it changes the options on the game, and it records, having it record what options you've chosen. That requires the firmware it records what options you've chosen and remembers and enforces them next time. That requires the firmware to know how many possible settings there are for each option, which isn't a huge problem in and of itself. If Baytech/SkeeBall changes their firmware so that there's a different number of options on some of the things, that can mess with things. Although the solution to that is to factory reset before you make any changes, it gets convoluted pretty quick. It turns into a possible mess. And that's kind of why I'm not going with that just yet. So right now, you set your options, like I said, with one of my little handheld programmer things. And we'll worry about whether or not those buttons do something later. Also, I've considered having the, making a little link cable using the ISP headers. The I2C data on these is also on the ISP header. So I've considered making a little link cable thing to go between all the SkeeBall games and link them all together. So then I'd be putting buttons on one or two of them, and I was thinking originally two sets of 8. So I'd be putting the buttons on 2 of them, and you use those to set the settings, and then it would just replicate those settings to the other lanes. Either way, the real overall point is that the buttons and what they are going to do and how many of them I'm going to install is all up in the air. I suppose for the sake of completeness, I should put them in there, even if they don't immediately do anything. But that requires a trip to HR. And money. Lost track of how much money I've put into this project. It's all recorded somewhere, but I have put a lot of money into these boards, and it's not even 100% confident that I'm going to recoup any of that. And I indirectly I am, because I work for the company, so. But I've put a lot of my own money into these, which I shouldn't have. That's the model that has to be followed when I'm making boards for the public. Is I need to invest in parts and put things together, and then list the thing for sale for a price that makes me a profit. But I could have done this differently, where I'm doing this to order for an employer. And I guess I still have the ability. I can, when I present these boards, I can say, I have boards, this is what I need from you, and either you pay it or you don't get the boards. I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna go. It's just one more piece of anxiety to go with all the COVID nonsense. So I like that I put such a small amount of solder on those holes to begin with, that it's still convex on the component side of the board. So the LED doesn't twirl around, that the leg will actually sit in the little dent. Let's turn on a fan. It's not aiming at the desk, so it shouldn't interfere with sound too much. But it hopefully will. Hopefully, having the air moving around my room will aim the solder smoke somewhere other than in my face. Obviously, it's still going to be in my room, and I'll still end up inhaling it eventually. But it will not. Hopefully, will not be going directly into my face for a while. We'll see. All right. There are only 2 more components per board now. Some of them are easier than others, but we are now going to put in these 4-pin KK connectors. These are where the board connects to the SkeeBall game itself. As is customary, I'm going to do 1 pin of each, and then figure out how to position them without burning myself, and come back and do the remaining 4 pins each, or remaining 3 pins each. Doing the ground pin first, no real reason. Completely arbitrary. So the problem I have with this process, of course, is that I'm about to heat up one end of a metal pin while basically holding my finger on the other end. It's that whole getting burned thing that I don't like. But hopefully we can get this done without a whole lot of pain. You see, they're sitting crooked. I don't know if you can tell or not, but oh, one isn't even down on the board. One of them didn't even go all the way down into the board. That's sharp. Okay, this one is not going to be perfect because somehow I have 2 pins that are already soldered. So the thing doesn't actually have the ability to move around. I'm not sure how that happened. But it did. Ugh. And I'm about to put my finger onto the spot I just soldered. This is the one that didn't even go on the board all the way, but that's okay. Good, 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 good. I actually like soldering these big terminals, these big pads. They're just satisfying. Put the iron on one side of the pad and bring the solder in from the other side, and it just goes right on there. And it works. I like it. It comes out nice. It's easy. It's easy to get a nice result. There was a little bit of a brief break in the video as the camera battery died, which is horribly inconvenient timing because we're literally down to the last component that needs installed. And that last component is going to be the ISP headers to program the boards. And I'm not going to do the programming on camera this time because, well, for one thing, the phone that I use to do the programming ultimately is in use for video recording. Actually, the other phone is in use now, too, for the audio recording. And the other reason is I've already got a video of programming the IO Dragoon board, and programming this is exactly the same process. I'm going to plug the ISP device, or the USB ASP, into the ISP header, and then hit the upload button, and it just does its thing. So there's nothing really to see there. I guess there's nothing really to see here either. I'm soldering parts into boards, which isn't really that exciting. But you've watched it this far, so we might as well finish. We're almost done. We're just going to put these ISP headers in, and that'll be that. So, then maybe, well, all of the microcontrollers that I put in here so far, well, all the microcontrollers that I put in here, because I'm done, it's not just so far, but all of the microcontrollers that I've put in here do not actually, with the exception of one, they do not have the actual SkeeBall configurator program on them. They have just a little demonstration program that makes all the lights blink. I am going to make sure that the sound is recording, because one time it wasn't, and it is. I don't want another section of video with horrible sound. Also, while I was waiting for my phone to charge, I did load the video so far into the computer, and I think the sound is definitely better this way than it was before. Ultimately, I will let you guys be the judge of that, not the judgment. You will never be a judgment. You're a human, I hope. Maybe some of you are bots. But, and AI has gotten to the point where I think bots are self-aware, so I can probably state, you are a bot, and it actually makes sense. I hate it when things move on my screen, when I'm not sitting there. Out of the corner of my eye, I just see motion, and I think something's going on, and look, and I can't see anything, but, anyway, they have a blink program in them right now that just blinks the LEDs. And I will more than likely run that program on all of them, I'll power up each one just to make sure they work. I'm probably not going to do all of them on camera. Maybe I will, I don't know, it doesn't take that long. It's a quick little program, you just plug the power in and it starts blinking. So I might do that on camera, I might not. It doesn't really... I mean, it's not a complete test, it doesn't really test the transistors that are driving the outputs. But they're all brand new transistors, and it seems unlikely that any of them are defective. It's not impossible. Obviously, it's possible that I get a defective transistor somewhere. I'm gonna hope not, but you never know. Where was that component? Right there, ISP header. I know what component I'm soldering. I just forgot where. I just forgot where it was, literally. So, is pin 6 ground? I don't actually know. I think 4 is reset. I have to look that up on the computer. I don't know if I put the dots on the right side. I mean, I know they're on the right side, but I don't know if I put them on the right end to mark pin 1. Guess it doesn't really matter. It provides a cue to know which way to plug the connector in, even if it's on the wrong end, but I'm going to feel better if it's right, which means that I am going to check. I could do that now, but there's no real meaning. I can't believe that's not labeled on the device itself. Is there like an arrow or something? No, nothing. Oh, no, that ain't gonna help. Yeah, it will. Pin 1 is that end. Pin 1 is opposite VCC. And VCC is the top. Hey, I got the 1s in the right places. It's a miracle. Or I got the dots. No, I didn't write 1s. What did I just say? Did I just say 1? I don't know if I said 1 or... Either way, it's a little dot, and I got them in the right place. That's good. That's what I wanted to evaluate. Hey, there's 2 of them. This actually is seems to be going faster. I mean, I guess I'm already up to I don't know. It's a really long video already, but it's only one really long video versus the last boards I did, which was the IO Dragoon boards, and I did fewer of those. I only did 6 of those on video. Of course, they're bigger boards, but they took many hours. I think I wound up with 6 hours of video out of the deal, which is just absurd. But in this case, where I have already prepared most of the components, the actual video content is shorter. It's still longer than I'd like it to be. We're going to have to continue evolving the video process to get these down to some reasonable length. Or maybe it's my assembly process that needs to be evolved. Maybe I'm videoing wrong. I just solder too slow or something. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. We are going to have to figure that out, because I'm going to keep on doing these videos, because why not? But I would hope to get them down to something that isn't such a torture to watch. The number of people who did watch the first set of videos is more than I would have expected, and it kind of inspires me to maybe keep posting things. I would never want to be... Wait a minute. Just a second. Yeah, that's right. I don't ever want to get to the point where my entire life is making YouTube videos. And I know I intend no disrespect for people who are living that kind of life right now. It's just not for me. So I mean, I'm not even aiming for that, which is good, because I don't think I could ever achieve it. I just don't have that much content to offer. But at the same time, if people are willing to watch it, or even if they're not, it gives me something to do. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I pretty much sit here and talk to myself anyway. So, if I can continue to do that with the illusion that someone might actually be listening via the camera, heck, I got nothing to lose, right? As I say that, I run out of things to say. Anyway. These 4 boards are actually done. With the exception of those buttons, but again, I think I'm not really putting those in until I decide what they're going to do, or how they're going to be implemented. And I may change that. I'm going to be back at work tomorrow, my regular job, and I will be in Portland, Maine, which is where HR Distributors is, which is where I get my parts. Well, not all of my parts, but it's where I get parts when I need them in a hurry, or just don't feel like waiting for DigiKey or Mauser. So I may very well go pick up more buttons. 32 of them little, they call them tactile switches. Tactile switches. They're buttons. What is blinking on my screen? Every time I look away, I see something over there blinking. I'm about to turn my computer off just so it'll stop distracting me. It did it again. I'm seeing things, I swear it. I have Kden Live open, which shouldn't be blinking because it's paused, or it's stopped, or... Does it pause? Does it stop? It's not playing anyway. The transport is not transporting. And I've got an OkCupid window open. Yeah, it did it again. I don't know what keeps blinking over there, but it's really distracting. I'm probably going to shut that off. There's nothing over there. I mean, OkCupid runs advertisements sometimes. But I'm not on a screen that should be showing an advertisement. There is nothing over there that should be blinking. There's nothing open on my computer that should be blinking. And yet, every once in a while, I see what it is. I caught it that time. It's the OkCupid window, and it's every time Chrome... Apparently, it's doing some automatic update or automatic refresh thing, and the status bar in Chrome shows what it's doing, and that's what keeps coming up. So, it is, you know what, it's annoying enough. I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to minimize that window, just so it'll stop blinking and distracting me. Not generally easily distracted. Yes, I am. I have a definite case of ooh shiny syndrome sometimes. It's getting worse, too. Getting to the point where I'm always losing track of what I'm doing. Part of that's age. Part of it is age, but part of it is just being easily distracted. There's two. So two more of these ISP connectors and we will be done the assembly. And then we can go to just powering the boards up one at a time and making sure that the Blink program runs as expected. And if it does, then we're done with these. Unfortunately, I don't really have an easy way to test the transistors. I could make a little power connector and test the regulators, but that'll probably be the wise thing to do. And I'm not always the wisest person. I might do it. We'll see. We'll see how I feel once we get these things soldered up. One more. One more will do it. Did I go flat? Yep. Flat on the board. I'm going to find some way to hold this down. So I've switched to steel wool. I was using a damp sponge. And I definitely like the results with the steel wool better. So, a little background on that. I did not receive any proper training and never even read the manual. But my mother worked in an electronics factory before I was born. And she was always soldering shit. And so I learned a lot from her. And she always used a damp sponge to clean her soldering iron tip. And it always worked. And more recently, I've realized that when you buy an actual proper soldering station, it usually comes with a little metal, wiry metal brush thing. I don't know what really to call it. And it has been recommended that I use one of those. And it works also. Seems to work. I guess it's supposed to work better. I mean, I haven't, whatever. Anyway, so I don't have one of those, but I just decided today that I would try some steel wool. And it is working, and I actually seem to like it better than the sponge method. So I think I'm gonna get a little. And this problem exists with the sponge too. I need a little weighted container that'll hold it in place. Maybe actually screw something down to my desk. Maybe not. Maybe not. I just need a little thing screwed to a board that I can clamp down to my desk. I don't really want to make a lot of holes in the desk. It's not a perfect desk. It's a pretty functional desk. I'd rather not have a whole lot of holes added to it. So, we'll see. We'll see where that winds up. All right, so these are done. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the soldering iron off. We'll turn it off. I think I'm done. I don't think I have anything more that I need to solder. So, to power these right now, since I don't have a cable made that plugs in. So a lot of my other designs, I've made cables that plug in wherever the game would normally plug in, and they're a power adapter with that plug. And I could do that for these, because these 4-pin plugs right here, they are what connect to the game. And pin 4 is a positive 12-volt input, pin 3 is ground. I could very well put one of these plugs on the end of just a cord chopped off an AC adapter somewhere. But I don't have that done already. So what I'm doing right now is I have my USB ASP, which feeds 12 volts to the board from the USB port, and I just have that plugged into a phone charger at the end of an extension cord. And we will go ahead and use that to test all of these boards. And the only thing we're really testing is that the microcontroller works and that the microcontroller is running and blinks the LEDs. I really should hook something up there to test the voltage regulators, but for right now, this will work. So it's and the other thing about these, I made a little flaw in my design. These capacitors are too close to the ISP header, so you got to bend them over. And there you go. That one's running. I'll bend all the capacitors over while I'm here. That one is running. All 3 LEDs are doing things. That one is running. That one is running. Okay, so all 4 of these, they passed that test. I will do the voltage regulator thing. I'll probably do that off camera. Or I'll make an entire test thing and we'll, maybe I'll do that on camera if I do that. But alright, test these 4. Good. 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 And good. Oh, wait, we got a red LED is out. What's up with the red LED? Why is the red LED out? Why is that red LED not lighting up? I have a strangest feeling it's backwards or something. How am I going to even see that? I can't tell if that's backwards or not. No, it looks like it's in the right way. Alright, so what's up with that red LED? What drives that thing? That resistor, which is soldered fine, that resistor comes off straight off a microcontroller, which also appears to be soldered fine. So we got one red LED that is not functioning. I'm not sure why. And I need to be able to see into that LED so that I can determine if perhaps it is backwards. There's going to be a brief delay while I go find my flashlight. And it has just occurred to me that I'm going through all this much effort so I can see the anvil inside there, and I can actually just do it the right way and look for the flat side of the LED. And by the looks, that LED is backwards. So, hopefully that's the entirety of the problem. Also, hopefully I can find my desoldering braid. This number 4 is done. I shouldn't have turned the soldering iron off. We're going to let that heat back up. Well, that's warming up. There's the other one. There's one more of these boards, which I had made. I had made this board prior to starting the videos. And I might as well test it. I don't remember if a program is on these or not, but I might as well check for misfunctioning LEDs on this also. Ooh, oh, there we go, it's running. That one is worthy of checking the connections. It's running. It runs. Okay, so this is the board that I already made prior to starting the video, and it is fine. And then we'll also check these. And I would not normally be wasting time testing all of these on camera, but I gotta wait for the soldering iron to heat up, so I might as well do something while I'm waiting. This one I know works. This one does not have the blink program on it. This one actually has the running code on it. Menu button. Cycle through options, hit factory reset. Now we wait. Now enter the menu again. Set all of the options. And we're done. So that's the, that one's got the actual code on it. I already know that one works. I used that because I wanted to post a video on Facebook last night. So I actually wrote the code on there and tested it, and it worked. So, but these ones have the blink code and have not been tested. That one is working as expected. I'm expecting that these are probably going to work, but I was expecting that one to work too, and it didn't. All of them are working on that. They are all working on that. So, D4 is the only one out of all of them that has one LED out. One stinking LED. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, yeah, that LED is definitely backwards. There's a number of different ways to desolder things. This is not one of the most recommended ways, but it's effective usually. I'm just exerting some force against the LED, not a ton. I'm not yarding on it. I'm not reefing on the thing, but I'm pushing the LED sideways while I heat the terminal up. And hopefully I'm going to pull the LED out of the board without pulling the tracks off the board. These are pretty high quality boards. They're probably going to be okay. The risk of doing this is sometimes the solder turns out to be, sometimes you just put too much force on it, and heating the thing up just weakens it further, and you end up pulling the trace right off the board, which sucks. It ruins the board ultimately. Sometimes you can patch them after. Sometimes you don't end up with that ability, and that just sucks. And then you're out of luck. Then you've made garbage out of your product. But number one, these boards are pretty decent quality. Number two, I know where all the traces go, so I can patch it if I need to. Number three, this is a silly red LED that the firmware isn't even currently programmed to use, and that I'm not quite sure what I will ever use it for. So, really, what do I have to lose by damaging where this LED goes? Pretty much nothing. Alright, so that LED... I'm not really sure what that little strand of something is. I mean, it didn't bring the trace with it, but... whatever. Whatevs, man. And we're going to put a new LED in there. Just because that one's got some really short leads left. This is provided I can find my LEDs. We're gonna put a new LED in there just because it's always easier working with clean parts when you have them. I mean, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to. You gotta make do. But right now, I don't have to make do. I have a whole bag of LEDs, so. I'd like to make do. I'd spend less on it. Mountain Dew, because I drink that stuff by the gallon. For anyone who doesn't know me, understand none of these products could ever exist if it wasn't for Mountain Dew. That looks pretty clean. Perfect? No, but pretty clean. Alright, this time we're going to get it in the correct direction. And we'll hack one side. And drop the LED down into the hole. Clip the leads short. And do a final solder. Gotta get that weighted dish. Okay, D4. Light up. There we go. My red LED is working. I had it backwards. Alright, that's a wrap. We're done.